And Charles, let's come back to you then. And agriculture and seeds.
Thanks, Mike. Yes, and indeed they're a very significant part in food security, which of course we've talked about within the context of the United Kingdom very much this year. We're now going to look further afield, but very much with an eye on what's going on here. So we see a report from ReliefWeb about what they're calling Kenya's seed control battle, why smallholder farmers want to share indigenous seeds. Now, this does go back for sort of over the course of some years, but it's not going away. And Kenya farmers, regarding what's happening, which is effectively the Seed Act taking away their ability to use indigenous seeds. They're talking about it as exploitation by multinational seed breeders. And another farmer saying that seed sharing is an old age tradition passed on from our forefathers. Unlike certified seeds, the use of indigenous seeds is cost effective as it does not require the use of chemical-based inputs. And indeed, there's more on this going back a couple of years from Greenpeace, who have been very active on this. But they highlight, of course, that 90% of the seeds planted in Kenya are from informal seed systems. And I think we could take that as being a figure that would apply across all of Africa, if not much of the rest of the world. And critically here, 80% of smallholder farmers depend on informal seed systems, which include sharing seeds with other farmers. Denying these farmers the right to use their indigenous seeds is a theft of the biological resources, which will translate to low food production, leading to food insecurity. And that really is the key to this. So this comes from, in the case of Kenya, the 2012 Seeds and Plant Varieties Act. Now, they talk about the theft from essentially their sort of indigenous practices. So the question is, therefore, who is conducting this theft? Who is engaged in these sorts of operations and trying to disrupt a system that has been in place for a long time? Well, let me introduce you to the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation Agricultural Innovations, Gates Ag 1, it's called. And rather than listen to me describe it, I've got a short video from their website describing what it is that they're planning to do in Africa.
Progress starts here. Growth starts here. Resilience starts here. Smallholder farms and the seeds planted on them share a lot in common. Support them and they will thrive. Equip them and they strengthen everything around them. And yet, this potential is still largely unrealized. Bill and Melinda Gates Agricultural Innovations was set up to bridge this gap with the mission of a non-profit and the agility of a startup accelerator. We call ourselves Gates Ag 1 because agriculture is at the intersection of the most pressing issues affecting humanity today, and smallholder farmers can be important agents of change all over the world if given the right tools and support. We use our unique convening power and patient capital to develop breakthrough crop transformations that reach and benefit smallholder farmers. Breakthroughs like improved photosynthesis, nitrogen fixation, and carbon cycling. Improving plant biology alongside pest and disease resistance and weed control offers the potential for solutions that are renewable, affordable, and scalable. Design, build, test, repeat. There is no time to lose. Join us.
There we are, Gates Ag 1 with a masterful display of saying one thing and really meaning another, but they're certainly not the only people who are in on this. It's, of course, something that's been considered by many other organisations with deep pockets and a desire to change the existing system of things, but we'll just look at the committed grant from the Gates Foundation. This goes back to 2012, of course, 56 million boost to increase food crops. Cambridge University have been given $35 million to boost production sustainability in sub-Saharan Africa. Indeed, the Rockefeller Foundation, of course, have an alliance for a green revolution in Africa. And again, the Rockefeller Foundation here specifically saying they support a uniquely African green revolution to improve smallholder farm productivity while preserving the environment. Now, this is the thing, the incessant targeting of the smallholder, which has prompted the Scientific American to put forward what seems to be a completely reasonable point of view, which is that Bill Gates should stop telling Africans what kind of agriculture Africans need. That's going back to 2021. But why exactly is he, and indeed the Rockefellers or anybody else, trying to do this? And this is from Mordor Intelligence, the latest on the projections in the world seed market. So we see at the moment, 2024, valued at around $73 billion a year. That's projected to go up to $100 billion by 2030. It might well be more than that. Now, that, of course, is why people are interested. The other thing that I should make clear here is that the type of seeds that they're talking about creating and selling are seeds that have in some way been modified. And therefore, we heard earlier about the necessity for chemical inputs. It also means that they're likely to be sold as being drought resistant or pest resistant. But that, in large part, is going to mean that digestibility by the human body is going to be greatly inferior. We see also in the literature from African farmers saying that these sorts of seeds are going to be very unlikely to be suited to the African conditions and will require huge cost inputs. But in Norway, in Svalbard in Norway, you may be aware that there is a seed vault there where effectively heirloom seeds that have not been adulterated are kept from all over the world in case of such a situation where there needs to be effectively the requirement to be able to start sort of seeds from scratch again. And you'd think, therefore, given the hybrid nature of what we've been talking about, that these people would have nothing to do with it. But of course, that's actually not the case. And here we see Bill Gates on LinkedIn saying that he's really enjoyed the virtual tour of the Svalbard Global Seed Vault. So it seems slightly odd that he would be involved with that. But lo and behold, back in 2007, he actually gave it some money. So why would he be interested in that? And then just quickly to round off, I point towards the Genetic Technology Precision Breeding Act, which came through in the United Kingdom in 2023, of course, with the full support of the NFU. But the reason I highlight it is that it's being talked about as a key tool for food security. And within the regulation section, they talk about regulating the food onto the market produced from precision-bred organisms. Now, they make it sound like this regulation is effectively a restriction here, saying that it cannot be done except in accordance with a marketing authorization. And finally, that they impose requirements for the purpose of securing traceability in relation to food or feed. Now, in its current iteration, of course, this is how it's looked at. It's as though it's to control this sort of food from going onto the market. It doesn't take much of a sea change before a decision that may be made could effectively turn it around, where in actual fact, this is the only food that is deemed suitable to be marketed. So I think that's something to be very wary of, particularly when one bears in mind what's been happening in Africa.
Yes, and the other point, Charles, about that legislation that needs to be mentioned is that while it says this is not genetic modification, they say that there is no introduction of, or there is no foreign genetic material in the final organism. That, of course, isn't entirely true. They're allowed to introduce foreign genetic modification in order to bring about a genetic mutation. They then have to remove the foreign genetic modification afterwards. They claim that this is all about doing in the laboratory or in the factory what can be done through selective breeding over a much longer timescale. They're simply shortening the timescales. This is not entirely true. And that piece of legislation is something we've been talking about for quite some time. And again, it needs to be an election issue, in my opinion. But anyway, we'll talk a bit more about that in extra. Now, let's have a